It starts way before the broken dreams and empty stadiums. You were 7, maybe 8. Saturday morning, still in pajamas, watching the game with your dad. The camera zoomed in on this player dancing down the sideline, the ball glued to his feet like magic, defenders sliding past him like he was untouchable. The crowd was on their feet, your dad was shouting, and something clicked in your chest. You didn't understand formations or tactics or the politics of professional football, but you knew this, that feeling, that pure electricity when someone could make 60,000 people hold their breath with a single touch. That stuck with you. You started asking for a ball for Christmas, your birthday, any excuse. Not just any ball, the same brand, same color as the one your hero used. You'd spend hours in the backyard, setting up cones made from whatever you could find, water bottles, shoes, your mom's flower pots when she wasn't looking. You weren't practicing drills you'd learned from a coach. You were recreating that moment, over and over, trying to feel what it felt like to be untouchable. The other kids in your neighborhood played video games or collected cards. You collected moments. Every weekend game became a study session. You started noticing things, how wingers received the ball, how they shifted their weight before making a move, how they used their eyes to sell a fake. Your friends would complain when you wanted to watch boring football instead of cartoons, but you couldn't help it. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was research. By 10, you had a reputation at school. You weren't the biggest or the strongest, but you were the one who never stopped running. During recess, when teams were picked, you always ended up in the same spot, wide right or wide left, where you could hug the sideline and chase every ball like your life depended on it. You'd come back to class with grass stains on your uniform and dirt under your fingernails, and your teachers would shake their heads, but you didn't care. You had found your thing. The first time someone called you the winger kid, you felt a pride you couldn't explain. It wasn't just a position, it was an identity. You weren't just playing a game anymore. You were becoming something. You'd lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, imagining the day when you'd make that same run down the sideline, when the crowd would rise for you, when your name would echo through the stadium speakers. It felt inevitable, like it was just a matter of time before the world caught up to what you already knew about yourself. Your parents started to notice. The way you'd bolt your dinner so you could get back outside before dark. The way you'd beg them to drive past the local stadium just so you could see where the magic happened. The way you'd wear your cleats to bed sometimes, just to feel ready. They thought it was cute, this childhood obsession. They had no idea they were watching the birth of something that would consume the next 2 decades of your life. That Christmas, when you unwrapped the jersey with your hero's name on the back, you didn't just put it on, you transformed. Looking in the mirror, you could see it. The future. The destiny. You were 8 years old, wearing a shirt that cost more than most of your other clothes combined, and you felt like you were already halfway there. The dream wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a blueprint. You weren't the best natural talent when you joined your first real team at 12, but you were the one who never quit. By 14, you had a reputation. You weren't the coach's son, or the kid whose parents could afford private training, but you were the grinder, the one who'd show up 30 minutes early and leave 30 minutes late. You weren't flashy like some of the others who could juggle the ball 100 times or bend free kicks into the top corner. You were obsessed. While your teammates complained about running laps, you asked for more. When practice ended, you stayed behind to work on your crosses, your first touch, your weak foot. The janitor knew you by name because you were always the last one leaving the facility. Your parents would find you in the backyard at 10 p.m., still working on the move you'd messed up during scrimmage, refusing to come inside until you got it right. The sacrifices felt meaningful then. Temporary. You stopped going to birthday parties because they usually fell on game days or training days. You quit the school play because rehearsals conflicted with practice. Your friends started making plans without inviting you because they knew what your answer would be. But it didn't matter. Every missed party, every skipped hangout, every sorry I can't was an investment in something bigger. At 16, you made varsity. Not as a starter, but you made it. The first time you ran onto that field wearing the school colors, even if it was just for garbage time in a blowout, you felt vindicated. All those hours, all those sacrifices, all those times people called you crazy for caring so much about just a game. This was proof they were wrong. You belonged here. You started getting noticed, not by scouts yet, but by people who mattered in your small world. The local newspaper mentioned your name after a game where you came off the bench and assisted the winning goal. Your coach pulled you aside and said you had potential. Girls who had never looked at you twice suddenly knew who you were. You weren't a star, but you were somebody. The summer before your senior year, you went to 3 different camps, not the expensive ones where college coaches were guaranteed to show up, but the ones you could afford, with money saved from your part-time job at the grocery store. You trained harder than ever, lost 15 pounds, gained muscle you didn't know you could build. When you looked in the mirror, you saw an athlete looking back. Senior year was supposed to be your year. You'd put in the work, paid your dues, waited your turn. You were faster than you'd ever been. Stronger than you'd ever been. Hungrier than you'd ever been. The starting spot on the wing was yours. You'd earned it through 4 years of showing up when others didn't, caring when others couldn't, believing when others wouldn't. That first game, running out of the tunnel as a starter, hearing your name announced over the PA system, seeing your parents in the stands wearing shirts with your number, you knew you'd made the right choice. Every sacrifice, every missed opportunity, every time you chose football over everything else, it all made sense in that moment. You had 17 games to prove you belonged at the next level. 17 games to catch the attention of a college scout, to earn that scholarship, to keep the dream alive. You weren't the most talented player on the field, but you were the most determined. And that had to count for something, right? Then one day it happens. October 15th, home game against your biggest rival, college scout in the stands. Third quarter, you received the ball on the right wing, beat your defender with a move you'd practiced 10,000 times, deliver a perfect cross that your striker heads into the back of the net. The crowd explodes, your teammates mob you, and for 30 seconds you think, this is it. You scan the stands, find the scout, see him writing something down in his notebook, and you allow yourself to believe. After the game, he approaches you. Business card, firm handshake, tells you he was impressed, says he'll be in touch. Your coach grins and slaps your back. Your parents take pictures with you in the scout, and driving home that night, you feel like you're floating. You've done it. You've caught someone's attention. The dream is still alive. You frame that business card. You check your email every hour for the next week, then every few hours, then multiple times a day. You maintain your training because you know the call is coming. You research the Scouts College online, memorize their roster, imagine yourself in their colors, picture your name on the back of their jersey. But weeks pass, then months. No follow-up email, no phone call, just silence. You start making excuses. Maybe he's waiting until the season ends, maybe he needs to see more film, maybe he's just busy. Your coach tells you to be patient, that these things take time. But you can hear something different in his voice now. Something that sounds like pity. Christmas break comes and goes. Your friends come home from their first semester of college with stories about parties and freedom and discovering themselves. And you realize you have no stories to tell. You've spent 4 months waiting for a phone call that's never coming. You start checking the college's roster online and see they've signed 2 other wingers, both bigger than you, both faster than you, both with highlight reels that make your best moments look ordinary. That's when it hits you. You weren't special that night. You were just adequate. The scout wasn't impressed. He was doing his job, covering all the bases, making sure he didn't miss anyone. You were a box he checked, not a player he wanted. You applied to regular colleges, the ones your guidance counselor recommended for your GPA, the ones where you might be able to walk on to the team if you're lucky. Your parents are proud when you get accepted, but you feel like a fraud, wearing the sweatshirt of a school you never wanted to attend, planning to study something you never cared about, preparing for a life you never imagined. The first day of college, walking past the soccer field where the real players are training, the scholarship guys, the ones who were wanted, You stop and watch for a minute. They move differently than you do. Think faster, react quicker. You realize you've been playing a completely different sport this whole time. You thought you were chasing the same dream, but you were running a different race entirely. You try out for the team anyway, because what else are you gonna do? The coach is polite, but disinterested. You make it through the first cut, then the second, clinging to the bottom of the roster like you've clung to this dream for the last 10 years. You're not starting. You're barely playing, but you're still here. Still hoping, still believing that somehow, some way this can still work out. But deep down, it stopped being fun somewhere between the scout's business card and the silence that followed, somewhere between the promise and the reality. You're not chasing the dream anymore. You're running from the truth. You don't remember when it stopped being fun. Somewhere between your third stress fracture and your fourth concussion, somewhere between watching younger players get opportunities you'd been waiting years for and realizing your coach sees you as roster filler, you realized you weren't chasing glory anymore. You were surviving. College was supposed to be different. You were supposed to develop, to mature, to become the player you always knew you could be. Instead, you became the guy who played 15 minutes when the game was already decided. The one who traveled with the team but never saw meaningful time. The one whose name appeared in box scores followed by zeros. 0 goals, 0 assists, 0 impact. Your body started breaking down in ways that scared you. Your right ankle never felt right after that tackle junior year. Your knees ached when it rained. You'd wake up some mornings feeling like you'd been hit by a truck and you couldn't remember why. The trainers knew you by your first name, and not in a good way. Ice baths became a daily ritual, not for recovery, but for basic function. The money situation got worse. While your teammates' parents sent care packages and spending money, you were working double shifts at the campus dining hall to afford gas money to get to away games. You watched guys complain about only getting a small allowance from home while you counted quarters to do laundry. Your cleats had holes in them. Your training gear was 3 seasons old, but you couldn't afford to replace anything. You started lying to your parents about how things were going. When they asked about playing time, you'd say coach was bringing you along slowly. When they asked about your future in the sport, you'd talk about keeping your options open. You couldn't bear to see the disappointment in their eyes, couldn't admit that their sacrifice, all those tournaments they paid for, all those camps they scraped together money for, had been for nothing. The worst part wasn't the physical pain or the financial stress. It was watching others succeed while you stagnated. Teammates who'd started playing seriously at 16 were getting opportunities you'd been dreaming about since you were 8. Kids who treated this like a hobby were getting looks from professional scouts while you, who'd made this your entire identity, were invisible. You started having panic attacks before games. Not from nerves, but from the crushing weight of knowing that every appearance might be your last real chance. Every touch of the ball carried the weight of 20 years of dreams. You'd stand on the sideline during warm-ups, watching 50,000 empty seats that would never cheer for you, and feel this overwhelming sense of emptiness. Your relationships outside of soccer had withered away. You'd spent so many years turning down invitations, skipping social events, prioritizing training over everything else, that you'd forgotten how to be a person who wasn't defined by this sport. When teammates talked about their majors, their internships, their plans after graduation, you had nothing to contribute. Soccer wasn't just what you did, it was who you were. And who you were wasn't good enough. The sunk cost fallacy became your religion. You'd invested too much to quit now. Too many hours, too much pain, too many sacrifices. Every coach who cut you, every scout who ignored you, every opportunity that slipped away just made you more determined to prove them wrong. But determination without talent is just stubbornness, and stubbornness doesn't score goals. Senior year, you realized you were living in a prison you'd built for yourself. The sport that was supposed to set you free had become the thing that trapped you. You couldn't quit because you'd given up everything else for this, but you couldn't succeed because you'd reached the limit of your ability years ago. You were stuck in the space between dreams and reality, too proud to give up, too realistic to believe. And that's why it sucks to be a winger. Because even if you walk away, something always stays on that sideline. You thought there'd be a moment when it all made sense, when the years of sacrifice and pain and disappointment would crystallize into something meaningful. Instead, there's this. You're 28 years old, working a job you don't care about, watching the World Cup with friends who don't understand why you get quiet when the camera pans across the bench. You still follow your old teammates on social media, the lucky few who made it to professional leagues, even the lower divisions, post pictures from stadiums you'll never see, wearing jerseys you'll never earn. You like their posts because you're genuinely happy for them, but each double tap feels like confirmation of what you've always suspected. They had something you didn't, something that couldn't be coached or trained or willed into existence. The identity crisis is the hardest part. For 20 years, when people asked who you were, you had an answer. You were a soccer player. You were a winger. Now what are you? The guy who used to play? The one who almost made it? The dreamer who dreamed too small or too big or just wrong? You catch yourself in conversations about to mention something soccer-related, then stopping mid-sentence because you realize you're not that person anymore. But you're not sure who this new person is supposed to be. You still play sometimes, in adult leagues where guys your age pretend the glory days aren't over. The fields are smaller, the goals are shorter, and everyone's a little slower, a little softer around the middle. You're still faster than most of them, still have better touch than the weekend warriors, but it feels hollow, like speaking a language fluently in a country where no one cares what you're saying. Your parents ask sometimes, carefully, whether you regret it all, whether you wish you'd focused more on school, dated more, explored other interests. You tell them no, because the truth is too complicated for a simple conversation. You don't regret chasing the dream. You regret how long it took you to realize it was never going to catch you back. The worst moments are when you're alone, usually late at night, and you do the math. 20+ years of your life, thousands of hours of training, tens of thousands of dollars spent on camps and equipment and travel. All for what? A few newspaper clippings your mom kept, some trophies gathering dust in your childhood bedroom, memories that feel more like wounds than victories. But here's the thing that really keeps you up at night. You can't say you'd do it differently. Because for a brief moment, when you were 8 years old, watching that winger dance down the sideline, you believed in magic. You believed you could be extraordinary. And even though the dream became a prison, even though it cost you more than it gave you, even though you ended up ordinary despite all your extraordinary effort, that belief was real. That hope was pure. The dream didn't make you special, but it made you human. It taught you what it means to want something so badly it hurts, to sacrifice everything for a chance at something greater, to discover the exact measurement of your limitations. Most people live their whole lives wondering, what if? You lived yours finding out. And that's why it sucks to be a winger, because the position that was supposed to give you wings ended up clipping them. Because you spent so many years running towards something that was running away from you. Because even now, even knowing everything you know, if you saw that 8-year-old kid in the backyard with his ball and his dreams and his unshakable belief that he was destined for greatness, you're not sure you'd tell him to stop. And that's the truth nobody talks about. The dream that was supposed to set you free became the thing that trapped you. But here's what's crazy. Knowing this doesn't make it easier to walk away. It just makes you understand why you can't. If this hit different, if you felt that knot in your stomach because you recognized yourself in this story, then you're exactly where you need to be. This is Grindflix, where we tell the stories that everyone thinks but nobody says out loud. Hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started. We're diving deep into every corner of the grind. The athletes who never made it, the artists still waiting tables, the entrepreneurs burning through their last savings, the dreamers who became prisoners of their own ambition.